Hello, everybody, and welcome to Best of 3, an esports podcast by Organized Gaming. I'm Mike.
I'm Alex.
And with us today, we have Alicia. Oh, can you say your name? Junus. Alicia Junus. Alicia Junus.
And that's how we start.
That's how we start. Welcome to the one take Best of 3 that we do every week. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys today?
We're doing great.
Fantastic. Pretty good day.
Now, Alicia, we really thank you for being on with us, especially during this strange time. How about you tell the people a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Alicia Junus, also known as Alicia X Life. I am the CEO of Accelerate Gaming, also known as AXL, which is an FGC esports organization. On top of that, I'm also the official caster for Soul Calibur 6, and I do commentate other games as well, such as Tekken and DOA.
Awesome. And for how long have you been doing that now?
Oh, geez. Well, the team I've been running for about a year and a half, and then for casting, I think about 2 years. I'm still fairly new, still fairly new to casting. I definitely got my foothold about a year ago, though.
Right. And so what is it that it helped you get into that?
I guess the biggest thing is that I loved competing for sure,
Mhm.
but one thing I also enjoyed was just giving insight to people's backstories and who they are. It meant a lot to me to see players who walked on stage and talking about more than just the game, about their
Right.
stories leading up into their gameplay. So you have someone to root for, and that people who are new to the FGC or new to the scene are able to appreciate what that person brings to the table.
So, okay, have you ever watched UFC?
A little bit,
A
not
little bit?
willingly.
Okay. I feel like Joe Rogan, like as a commentator, as a caster, like did a really good job of like educating people on what it is, what's happening, and you know, it helps a lot to get new people into the scene as well, because they might not know what's happening. So doing a good job of that and that storytelling also helps a lot. So yeah.
Exactly.
Um,
Like one of the things too is that like a lot of people are always like, you know what, like we need like a super analytic casting, which analytic commentary is a great thing to have. But what I try to bring to the table is something where it's like it kind of dumbs down the information one step below, where it's like anyone who tunes in, maybe new to the game, can understand what's going on. And that's something that always meant a lot to me, especially when I entered into a new scene or a new fighting game, was just being like, cool, I have no concept what's happening in this game besides that it's like a 2D or a 3D. So
Right.
being able to be like, "Oh, cool, you know what? Like, that does blah, blah, blah. That's sick. Cool." Like, little things that might seem redundant to those who play at a higher level. At the same time, it's like when you're in tournament mode, like, you have an extra few thousand viewers who are not organic to the scene, who wanna learn about it, so
Yeah. No, I agree with that. There's always such a going into casting. There's always such a learning curve for different members of the audience. Some people they want to learn how to play the game through watching people play, and so they're not going to understand that kind of analytic kind of commentary. However, there is always the opportunity for like a second caster in there to provide that kind of commentary as well. And so like both sides of the coin are necessary for casting.
of
It's
course.
the long and short of what I'm trying to say.
So what kind of caster would you be, Mike?
What kind of caster would I be?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would I would 100% be just the guy who rambles on. Not necessarily
Wow, I
like
would
saying
never have
anything.
guessed.
No,
Yeah,
it's
never.
fine. Not necessarily saying anything of analytic note, but definitely being like, yeah, wow, and that person has a gun. Look at that. Wow, he shot it. He got him. He didn't.
That's how
This
we
has
do
been
it,
Still
boys.
Just Mike signing off.
How
Got
to
you here
cast
all week.
101 right here. Oh my
Exactly.
goodness.
Wow, that's what the show should become. That's like the title of the podcast now.
Oh
Is
yeah.
How to
Casting
Cast
101.
101. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
With Mike. That's not
With
me.
Mike.
Yeah,
Not with the
Forget the
actual
real
professional,
caster. Yeah,
just
forget
no,
it.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like, come on, I'm just the side one, dude. It's all you, bro. Like, you had it. You had the ad read earlier off stream. Like, it was
Yep.
crazy. Y'all didn't hear it, but he had the cleanest ad read I've ever heard.
Well,
Like, he's ready. He's ready.
and unfortunately you won't, because if I do, then they're never actually going to sponsor us. So
Yep.
both
Okay.
the product and the site that I plugged, nope, neither of those.
All right.
Uh,
So getting back, yeah. Sorry, we were talking about how you got into casting and everything,
yeah,
Yep.
game community. Yeah. So most people they say, oh, like I started in gaming way long ago. Have you been gaming your whole life?
Yeah, it was definitely my entire life. I have like this cool like YouTube video up like that is on the AXL channel that talks about my entire journey. Believe it or not, at one point of my life, which was my entire life until I hit like 2021,
nice.
I was a really quiet kid, like
Hmm.
really quiet to the point where my parents had to like literally give me like objects to make me speak at least one sentence a day, kind of quiet.
Wow.
Oh,
So it was pretty severe when it came to how quiet I was, and, the one thing that they got me to, like, be able to kind of interact and talk to people with was gaming.
Okay.
So, I became super into video games at a very young age, which helped my growth a lot as a person, and that's why when people were suddenly like, "Video games make you violent," it's like, "No, I was a pacifist my entire life." Like, yeah, I
Mm,
did use violent video games technically, but, like, it's not like I ever hit nobody, like, I've been a pretty
never
pretty
got
rounded
into a
out.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where um, it just unifies people so much too, and especially when it came to me trying to socialize with other people, it was still kind of difficult in that sense, not because I was, like, rude or, like, gawky, it was more so just because I was so quiet, but when people were like, "Wait a second, you play Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube? I had that at my house, let's go play it," and it's like, stuff like that just, like, brought me together so much, like, it was like a mini
cool.
FGC on its own before I became into the real one, you know?
Wow. Yeah, like you were catching us up a little bit on that with we did a Passion Forward interview with you. I
Yeah.
think that was last year at Toryukin. So yeah, it was great to hear about that. But I just wanted to let everyone else who had not watched it let them know a little bit about your past as well. Yeah.
I mean, arcade culture is kinda dead right now, but,
Yeah.
back when I was a kid, it's like which I'm not that old, it's just the place where I lived was outdated. That's all it was. So, like, we still had arcades that were still, like, somewhat bumping just because everyone's old and the arcade cabinets were super outdated as well. They did not have the most current games. I was playing
Mhm.
Soul Blade in arcades. Like, that's the sign of how old these arcades are, man, like, they're
Wow.
old.
No, and
And then
they're dropping like flies. I
they
don't know
are.
where there is a real arcade anymore. Yeah, I used to love going to arcades. I love racing games. I love fighting games. All that.
Mm.
Yeah, just like Palladium. Is Palladium still around?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike, it's up to you. You wanna
It's up to me.
Would
He's
you
researching.
would you consider Palladium a real arcade?
I
Oh,
have never even been, so I
Oh, you
wouldn't know.
Oh,
I think
wow.
it functions the same way as like a Jack Astor's, no?
Yeah,
So like it
it's a little
has
bit
stuff
like
in
more
it.
like
Oh,
Dave and
arcade
Buster's.
bar?
Dave
Yeah.
and Buster's, yeah, like it's yeah, kinda. But I mean, it's temporarily closed now, obviously,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
nobody can go in and touch things. But
Oh,
uh,
man. Yeah.
I
Don't
mean,
don't
like, when
touch
it
the
comes
sticks.
Yeah, yeah, especially arcades, like
Yeah, definitely do not wanna touch those sticks. That's yeah. I'm so concerned with what's gonna happen post-COVID, even at LAN cafes or everything, the perception, and really the close proximity too. You
mhm,
wanna play, in a LAN cafe or even an arcade with somebody, you gotta be right next to them and be touching the same things they are.
That's true.
it's
So
I mean
how's AXL handling, the quarantine? What are you guys doing during this time?
yeah, it's pretty wild and pretty intense, just because the entire both tours that we were on are now at a standstill. They have not announced if they're going to be canceled or not. So it's
Right.
a very scary situation, but we quickly tried to bounce back into our plan B, um, which is shifting onto online focus. Like we were an online oriented team when we first started by taking online talent and pushing them into the offline scene. And it's kind of like tapping back into our roots, where we decided to host these online weekly tournaments to keep the community unified. And we've been trying to grow from there on out too. So we've been collaborating with other teams as well, such as Disrupt Gaming, which if you know them, they're a pretty large organization. They have like COD, like CS:GO. They have like everything
Mhm.
basically in one. Pretty large team. And then also Equinox as well, which is another fantastic FGC team as well. So we were just kind of partnering up with different teams all together, trying to create something together, making sure we're still creating content and putting it out there.
Right.
Um, Still a pretty scary time for everybody, but hopefully things kind of turn a new corner, especially when things get a bit more cleared up.
Yeah. Online tournaments, how is that going? Because I know net play and stuff has a lot of issues, a
Mhm.
lot of players complaining. So how's that been for you?
Oh god. So yeah, so when it comes to like net play issues in these tournaments, right? Was that we used to do like really solid prizing and stuff like that each week, and people got so hostile about it. Like, right? Like I'm gonna
Mm.
be very candid here. People would whack. Like they were like, this was a 3 bar. I'm enraged. And like they would just lose their minds. And I was like, that is not what we're going for here, right? Like calm down there, guys.
Mm.
So eventually what I decided to do was actually like cut out the prize pool and just go, hey, play for fun, make friends, learn how to enjoy each other as a community. And if you play someone in a 3 bar, grab them, like, right, just do some cheese, right? Oh, they're using lows on you on and online, do it back, right? Find a character with a faster low, do it to them, like it's fine, right? Like I joke, like throw pocket sand at them, I say stuff like that, or it's like, and it actually ended up doubling my entrance from doing that.
Oh, wow.
Rather than
Wow.
which taking out a prize you think would lower your entrance, opposite happened. Everyone was like, "It's actually a fun environment to be in."
Mm.
Bam! So, like, some weeks I would get, like, 70 entrants, 80 entrants, which is, like, crazy for just this free online weeklies that people were just joining into.
Wow.
Um, and then I did, like, one for charity recently, which, like, had $5 entries as well. It also had a Matcherino, which we partnered up with Matcherino now, and,
Right.
amazing company as well.
Matrino is awesome. I
I
know
just
Incendium
heard
just
about
started
them
that.
last week with Jackie, and oh my gosh, Matcherino's amazing.
Yo,
It's
yeah, like, the whole staff's amazing, like, the CEO himself is
Yeah.
amazing, like, he's a really sweet guy, you guys should talk to him too, he's really great. I have a fruit fly that just buzzed my camera, and I
I
just
just
got
saw
so
that.
agitated. I was like,
Your
"What is
camera
that?"
quality is so good. I saw, like, every little
I tripped. I thought
I
that was actually like real to me. You know what I mean? I thought that
no,
was flying by. I
yeah,
was
right?
like,
I was, like, so scared, and it's I bought a fruit fly trap, and not a single one has ever gotten on that
oh,
thing, and
man,
s
come
so it's just
on.
like, there's 2 of them, and I know they're gonna multiply if I don't get rid of them. I have
sweet
traps.
DIY, sweet DIY. So take a water
Oh,
bottle,
Okay,
yeah, cut off the top,
okay.
and then fill it with apple cider vinegar, and then
I'm gonna stink up my apartment, that's great.
yeah, it reeks like apple cider vinegar when I do that. But then you flip the bottle part, the top of the
Mhm,
bottle, upside down and like
yeah,
attach it to yeah. So they fly in the hole in the little funnel and they can't get out and they get stuck in the apple cider vinegar.
sounds like a mortifying death trap.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
what?
But you only need like this much apple cider vinegar. They'll go in and they'll touch it, and then they won't be able to get out. So yeah,
It
it
sounds
works
like a
like a
torture
charm.
chamber.
No,
Okay.
trust me, it works. Okay, be fruit fly free.
Okay, I bet. Like, I will have my
yeah.
apartment smell like that, fuck it, like, I will do anything at this point, this is fine.
Alex
It's like,
dropping knowledge here, like, what? Come on, dude.
Oh
appreciate
man,
it, appreciate because like, it's gone, and then, like, I find out that I had 1 more left, and then, like,
Mhm.
everything then my mind breaks loose, and I just go crazy. It's fine. I'm good. I'm
You
fine.
know, it's fine.
it's the fruit fly podcast now. It's cool.
Yeah, like, we're just talking about, like, "Oh, let's talk about more household objects. Why not?"
Household
Like, you know
tips,
what?
yeah.
Let's talk about LEDs again.
Ooh,
Oh,
LEDs. Get that streaming setup
okay.
going.
Alicia has, you know, she's a streamer. You know, you're a
Yeah,
streamer when your
right?
setup looks like that. So she turned on the camera, and I was like, "What? Like this is such a sick setup. I love
Everybody who first saw that was like, "Whoa, streamer setup."
it." Yeah.
I mean, I would love to, however, I also work, and so doing, like, all these Zoom calls, I feel like I would stand out a little bit if I were to, you know.
You
I mean,
haven't
you
seen
always just turn the LEDs off and then just go back to controlled.
I would never do that. No, I would want
Oh,
it
I
to look
don't.
like
I
this all
definitely
the
don't.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
completely understand. Yeah, whenever I
okay.
do anything, I just have them on, and it's like, "Oh, well, you know
of
what? Like,
course,
I'm fabulous, I'm sorry." I just
of
glow
course.
purple constantly.
You bleed purple, purple and
Yep.
yeah.
There you go.
That was my inner Jackie energy coming out. Yes. Like, whenever I'm being fierce, it's always Jackie energy. That's what
Aw,
that is.
that's some
Is
big
Jackie
Jackie energy.
your inspiration for fierceness? Is
Oh, 100%, 100% my inspiration for that.
She's
Like,
fierce.
listen, when I was mousy, she was my MVP backer, okay? Like, I was mousy at tournaments and hyperactive and happy, and she would cheer me on like a proud mom, and I took that mentality and I cheered for other people that same way because of her. So,
Wow.
definitely.
well, that's awesome. You know, share the energy, pass it on, and yeah, bring everyone together.
There you go.
Exactly.
So what we're going to do now, let's take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to get a little bit more into AXL. I want to get a little bit more into FGC Woke. Definitely want to talk a little bit about that, which we will do when we come back from the break. So we'll see you in just a little bit. Welcome back to Best of Three in our conversation with Alicia Junus. Alicia, tell us a little bit about AXL.
Yeah, so basically, AXL, which its actual name is Accelerate Gaming Incorporated, is a FGC esports organization that takes pride in not only taking really talented, top-notch players, but also talented personalities, where these people are likable pillars in the community that help drive it to a
Mhm.
better tomorrow. So, for example, we have really talented players like Party Wolf, who is like the pioneer of content creation basically within Soul Calibur. We also have like amazing new content creators like Mizzy Me, who is like this lovable,
Oh,
like energetic personality. She's recently got into commentating as well for Tekken. Like just a bunch of amazing people who are more than just gameplay. They're
Mm.
a whole entire person that is just so magnetic to be around.
well, I feel like you have a really interesting brand that's very different from other FGC brands. Like, it's very bright, it's very female empowered, and it's yeah. So it's just like something very different, and I always loved it, and I love the pink and purple too. So just gonna throw
Thank
you
you.
compliments here. I don't know.
I appreciate it. I'll take them all up. Like, in general, like, a few things that, like, mattered to me a lot when it came to the company was diversity. Though I never really, like, targeted or went outwards to find diversity, it was
Mm.
just the fact that a lot of people were so qualified on paper that were diverse. And I was like, "Okay, perfect." Like, I didn't need to see what you looked like to understand, like, the content of your character. And a lot of, like, the phone interviews I did, I still didn't know what they looked like in person. And it helped a lot with getting a lot of women in my field and a lot of like people of color within my team too, where just the results spoke for themselves. And I mean, with that does sometimes come like hardships. Like I'll be a little bit transparent about this part too, where it's
Mm.
sometimes certain brands when striking a brand deal aren't okay with having too many people of color on your
Oh,
edits. So I had to highlight white players more. And I was like, no, I'm not going to associate with brands that are flat out racist. That's not who we are.
Right.
We have like all of our players are basically colored. That doesn't make sense. Your CEO's colored. Like, what are you going to do at that point, right? It's very difficult space to be working in.
wow,
Um,
I've never heard that actually. So usually
Mm.
it's the other way. Like, shouldn't we include some more diversity in here? Wow.
yeah, it's hard because it's like it's focused on being more like it's I don't know. It's a very weird culture to be a part of. I feel like that now things are definitely taking more of a shift where some companies are a bit more like, do you know what? Yes, we want people of color type of thing. It's just it's hard. It's hard in general when it comes to I guess I don't know. It's just I guess it's kind of like the cookie cutter version of esports that everyone looks at is usually like
Right.
either predominantly white or Asian, to be honest.
Asian.
And it's hard when people of color try to come into the scene because it's just not seen as being like I guess the beauty standard to a degree.
I,
Yeah,
I
it's sorry, go ahead.
I didn't see that as much in the FGC. So to hear this coming from you is such an eye-opening thing to me. I was like, wow, this exists even in, you know?
Do
Like,
you think the platform has something to do with sort of the amount of minorities in the FGC? Just that it's on console and rather than PC or something like that?
I think more so that it's just the fact that we have um a nature where it's sorry, 3 steps back. I think that
mhm,
reason why the FGC does have predominantly a lot of people of color is the fact that it's about the offline scene. I think
yeah,
that's where it comes down to, right? It's about building a community because community is the key part of the FGC. And a lot of other games don't have that. They don't have the community factor, right? You don't go over to like I mean, you have LAN parties, right? Organized LAN parties. But it's way different than going over to your bro's house and cooking them in a first to 10 and taking their money,
right,
right? That's way
right.
different. Like and that's the thing, right? It's I don't think it's about either if they have PC or console. I don't think it's anything to do with that, right? Because at the end of the day, we can all afford what we can afford, and color doesn't matter when it comes to that. So
Okay.
I think it does come down to is the fact of it being just the fact that we're out seeing each other in person more often than most conventional gamers when it comes to PC gaming.
That makes a lot of
I
sense.
mean, plus I personally feel like LAN parties are trying to emulate that same kind of community feel anyway. So
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's I feel like everybody wants the FGC community, like all other games
Mhm.
want the FGC community, but it's really hard to do. The FGC community gets together for weeklies every single week. You see these
Yeah.
guys every single week, and you don't see that with other games. So
True.
yeah,
And
it's
I mean, it's
something to
also on
aspire
top of
to.
that is like when you're able to play games that are solo dependent, right? Where they're just like about like they're so independent from other players on your team that it makes things a lot easier too. You're not relying on your whole team showing up or planning a date to go out together or things like that or
Right.
needing a fifth man. Like it's none of that's put into the equation. It's just about if you show up or if you don't, right? And with that in mind though, it comes into like this weird scenario of like, I guess people's own inflated egos coming into play too, because you're like, you are your own person. If you're out here beating people, you are the best. Versus if you're on a
Yeah.
team, you're a bit more humbled because you're just like, there's other people like, oh man, you made that one sick play. You know what? That really shifted the game. We're able to take Baron off of that. Like, it's just
Right.
it's it's all about the shift of power, right?
Oh, that's interesting. I really like that point that it's more about how much you guys come together. So it's a really big point that I think is one of the reasons why the FGC is the way it is. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the other half of that too is that online play is not
Ass.
quite where it should be in a lot of fighting games.
So okay, here's a question for you.
Mm.
What's wrong with net play when I can hop on Counter Strike, League of Legends, whatever, Overwatch, and not necessarily have those similar issues? Do you
Okay,
do you
yeah.
know do you know what's wrong with net play? Is this something
Yeah,
that
flat out. So what happens is the biggest discrepancy between them is that Overwatch and stuff like that has servers. They're server based, right? When it
Mm.
comes to most fighting games, it's actually person to person connection, which is
uh
why it's so fluctuating and it's has inconsistencies up the wazoo. But when you're based on a server, it's really easy to relate ping back, right?
Mhm.
Versus this when it's like high ping constantly, just because in like regardless if you're in the same city or not, you're gonna have slight ping issues just because of the fact it's not bouncing to a server, it's bouncing to a person. So yeah,
Okay, makes
which
sense.
is so it's
That
like big corporation stuff versus like smaller game stuff, right? It's like
Right.
you're getting multi-billion, right? When it comes to like Overwatch franchise, you can't like shoot that and be like, yo, why is that at the same standard as like Caliber? Like Caliber is an amazing game, but like you can't expect them to bust out a server like that.
I see. Cost issues makes sense. But more specifically, server. I learned something today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's just paying it forward from the whole fruit fly thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. You know what? You teach me, I teach you. That's how we
Mhm.
work. Yeah.
Pokemon. Yeah.
As I slowly go crazy here while trying to find that flag, I can't find it anymore, but I will find it again, and it will haunt me in my dreams. It'll be great.
Oh man. So let's
So
oh sorry, go ahead, Mike. I'll let you do this one.
all right. Before we move on to our next topic, I just want to let everybody know that we are accepting questions for the second half of our podcast.
Yeah,
So, if you have any questions, just make sure to put them in whatever place you are listening to this podcast right now. We will see it and we will ask that question. Moving on, let's talk about FGC Woke. How about you tell us a little bit about that?
Mike's
What
reading
is
my
FGC?
mind.
Cool. So FGC Woke was something that kind of blew up on its first time of us running it. It was insane.
Mm,
Basically, like, as you know, like, my best friend's, cuddle core, her name's Janelle. Her and I, like, call, like, literally once every 2 to 3 days and
mhm,
talk about life and powwow because it's hard. It's hard out here being a colored female on the scene. That's just facts, right? We go through a lot, and we always played the mind game and the games of, like, you know, suck it up. You're in the spotlight, like be quiet about it. Like if someone's terrible towards you, let it go. Be the better person, take the high road. We did that, right? We've done that for
mhm,
years now. And then one day we were just sitting there and she actually was crying and I started crying because we were just talking about how frustrating it was because there's top players in our scene. Like top players in the FGC who are literally
mhm.
saying like black women can't play the game, they're only good for sucking dick, literally what they're
What?
Wow.
saying. Yeah,
Wow.
so she was like, "This is why people leave." And I was like, I even had one of my content creators leave the FGC, not because of like us or anything. She loves us and she wants to stay. But the problem is that she is in a space where she's like, it's draining. It's mentally draining how much harassment I get for just being a female. And like, I can't. Like, I wanted to have fun and like grow, and it was so much fun. And then this happened, and people are so hostile for no reason.
Mhm.
Like, the crazy part was is that people were hostile over her doing well. That's what they were
So
hostile about.
it didn't start getting hostile until she started playing better or doing well, or
Yeah, that's basically what
oh,
happened. So
wow.
people started to, like,
Wow.
point, and then, like, they were, like, attacking her appearance and, like, doing other weird stuff. Like, it was just a weird, overwhelming thing to
Oh,
happen.
man.
And then they started leaking out her full name in, like,
Oh,
Facebook stuff and, like, post recaps and, like, videos on YouTube, and she was just like, and I was like, "Listen, do what you gotta do. Protect yourself, protect your mental health. That matters
Mhm.
way more than anything else. We'll figure it out from there." And that's kind of the road we went with her, and it's just stuff like that, like scenarios like that, just it hits so hard. And Cuddle, and then when Cuddle and I were talking, I was like, "You know what? Like, why don't we just talk about this on a podcast?" And she goes, "We can do that?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, I was like, who wouldn't listen to us? Hello? Like,
Right, right.
and she's like, "Okay, I don't know how to do any of this." And I was like, we'll figure it out."
yeah.
Mhm.
And we ran our first episode, and we had, like, an average about 250 people watching or so. We peaked at about 400 people watching, I think, around
Wow.
there, watching live, and it was intense. It was intense. We thought it was gonna be a one-off podcast. We did
Mhm.
not think there was gonna be a second or now a series. Um, but
And so at this point, how many episodes have you had?
we finished up episode 4, so we're heading on to 5.
Beautiful.
So the first one was just like FGC woke. Second one was relationships, but it wasn't just about like, oh, like what's it like having a relationship within the FGC. It also talked about like sometimes players going through like LDRs, sometimes people who have relationships with their fans, what that's like. Not intimate relationships, but like what it's like to have a line drawn between you and your fandom, or especially when you see them in offline and have to hang out with them in person. It's like, what are your obligations to them? Like, what are you supposed to do with your own time? Like, and kind of addressing all of those things as well. And then also talking about consent, which is
Mm.
a big, big issue across
Mhm.
esports across the board, not just the FGC, right? Is that um there's there's so many issues with consent in the scene. And like from last year at Evo, people getting roofied
I hear horror
to
stories all the time, to be honest, and it's really brutal. I've never seen anything myself, and but I don't know if it's a little bit more under the radar. Like, stuff happens a little bit more closed doors, and
Yeah.
then it comes out after. But yeah, um,
um I mean, the thing usually of how it works is that it's it's controlled. So it's controlled release statements where basically instead of the statements blowing up, the statements blow up to the extent that they would for like almost any other announcement that people do. So for example, um, I mean, even another scandal, which is not of the same sort of nature, but it's same sort of scandal nonetheless, would be like, oh, like XQC putting like a try hard emote
mhm.
when he saw a black commentator, like a black host on
Oh,
Overwatch, and then he got his first ban, right?
right.
So it's like stuff like that where it's like, yeah, you wouldn't really know the exact pinnacle scenario of how that all happened unless you were actually following him and following the team itself. Because
Right.
you would just know the fact that,
Right.
oh, he had a band put on, right? Like you wouldn't know. It's because they do a very good job at controlling the narrative when it comes to a lot of this stuff happening. And the same thing happens a lot of the time when it comes to these severe cases of sexual assault, is that it's a very controlled a controlled narrative. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reason why there's not much exposure on the situations, which is one of the things FGC Woke does. It's supposed to be an unfiltered, raw conversation where it's like we drop our titles and we just talk about what's happening. And, I brought up, for example, there is one sexual aggressor in the scene who I've tried to get, like, I've gotten other people banned from the scene who have been aggressors.
Mhm.
But for some reason, I can't get this one person banned. And I don't know why. And
Oh,
every
wow.
time, every organizer will be like, "We'll look into it. I promise you we'll look into it," and they blow it off, and it's
And
because
then
it's a
they don't.
female aggressor.
Ah.
Oh,
So they think it's a touchy subject, and I'm like, "Men are getting sexually assaulted. It's the same equivalency to women. Stop ignoring this." So, I don't know, I'm still feel like I'm bashing my head against a wall, but I'm not gonna stop for them. Like, I have full faith that
Good.
one day, if
yeah.
I push hard enough, that people will follow through, and it's something I talked about even on episode 4, was that, like, that bothers me that's not taken to the same severity when a man is sexually assaulted versus a female. Um, I'll be a bit graphic. I'm gonna go into the story a little bit. Is okay if
Please,
I
please do.
Yeah, yeah,
Take
yeah.
it.
the one of the victims, this is what they went through. I'm not gonna name names or anything, but this is one of the scenarios. Um, he got caught. So he went to go urinate in a washroom, and he went to open the door. She walked in behind him and closed the door behind him, like behind herself, locking them both in,
Okay.
and then proceeded to push herself onto him. He said no, and then she proceeded to give him a blowjob.
Mm.
Right. So
Okay.
he said no multiple times until he said yes, like whatever, and try to let it happen. Right. And that's what I was like trying to explain to people is that when she came out and made a statement saying this, that she did this, right? She name dropped her victims, right? And I was like,
Oh, man.
how at what level of crazy are you to one
Oh,
name drop your
man.
victim, tell what happened, and still not get banned? Like that's crazy. And it was just like people just would not ban her still. At least she's still not banned, by the way. She's still not banned.
So are the tournament organizers that you're speaking to male?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think that has if it were female tournament organizers, do you think it'd be a little bit different?
Um,
Um,
I think it's less to do with gender, and I think it's more to do with people being scared of what happens if we go against a female when she's a sexual aggressor because they're not used to this scenario. And I think they don't realize is that they do have the backing from the community if they go forward. That if they I think it's the fear of backlash that happens a lot of the time, right? They don't understand like what's going to happen. And I the worst part is I'm friends with a lot of these tournament organizers. It's not like
right.
I'm going off to them like very cold and
Right.
coming to the scenario. It's like, hey, I talk to you once every 2 weeks, once every week. Like we're catching up. This is happening. I
You
have
know
two
what they're
victims
about.
willing
They
to
know what
talk to
you're
you.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have two victims willing to talk to you. You know what I do for you. Like when it came to banning other people, I got you the evidence you needed. I'm doing the same thing. Take my word, right? I have two victims willing to talk to you. And when I had two victims willing to talk, these people were willing and they delayed talking to them so much that the victims got cold feet. They delayed it by 2 months to talk to
Oh,
these victims, right? And then the victims were just like, "I just wanted this to be over with. I don't wanna
yeah,
talk about it anymore. I can't do this anymore." And I'm like, Of course, you shouldn't have to because they should have
Right.
addressed it that week when you were ready to talk. It shouldn't have taken 2 months for them to talk to you."
of course.
Like, it's insane, and, it's hard because I wanna protect people so badly, and it's come to the point, by the way, where this person at a tournament, right? I was sitting playing casuals at a different game.
Mhm.
I was playing I don't wanna mention too many games because then it's gonna start like, people will start to know who's who and everything. But basically, I was
Mm.
playing casuals at a different game, and I had 2 people from the other game where this person was at, walk over to me and go, "Hey, like, Alicia, I don't know what to do." They were not on my team. These 2 people who walked up to me were not on my team. They just walked up to me because they knew I'd protect them, basically. They're like,
Oh, okay.
"She's, like, pressing herself up against people, and we don't want her to, like, I don't know what to do." They're panicking, and I was like, "What the hell?" So I walk
Wow.
over, and she has, like, her breasts on the back of people's heads and hugging them and trying to, like, kiss their cheeks and stuff.
Oh,
And I'm like, "That's if any man did that to a female,
it'd
No.
be
do you
over.
know
It'd be
it'd
That
be
is
over.
no.
over. There's no way. There's
No.
no way, right?
Mm-mm.
So in 2 seconds, like, right, like, after a f like, it's like the final day of the event, when everyone takes a few drinks, Alicia took a few drinks, walks over and goes, "Bitch off, get the fuck off, back up."
Oh,
3 steps,
Wow.
back up, right? And she's like, "What? I didn't do" I was like, "Back up." And she just walked away, and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, don't come back," right? And when she tried to, like, loop around, I was like, "Go," right? Instantly, just like a dog, like, I did not care. I did not care anymore. This is about the safety of people, right? And it's like, if people are
Mhm.
not willing to step up and help these people be safe, hell yeah, I'll step up. It shouldn't be my job to, but I will.
right.
Same thing happened over in EU. I was at like another tournament called VSF. There was a guy who's a sexual aggressor who was allowed in, harassing women, groping them.
Oh
What
my
did they
goodness.
do? I had to cast back-to-back top 8s and still be a bodyguard to women. Like, what the hell is going on, dude? Like, that's whack. Like, and that's
That's
what we talk
Oh
about
wild.
in
my.
FGC Vogue is, like, stories like that, which aren't brought to light ever, which we don't get to talk about because they're being handled behind closed doors. And I'm like, "Do you know what? Screw this closed door stuff. It's not working right now. Let's
Mhm.
blow it up."
Mhm.
And
Well, I
blowing it
I
up works.
appreciate you bringing it up because that's
Absolutely.
precisely yeah, like, I don't want to hear about these things, in a vague statement that doesn't really say anything or, I wanna know what I'm getting behind and, who like, why they were banned and, more transparency, I think, would be great. Um,
Exactly. It also
yeah.
creates an environment where people know everyone's held to the standard, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't matter how big your clout is or who you are, that you're handled this way. And the same thing happened when we're talking about low tier god, right? That was our
Yeah.
episode 3. We talked about low tier god. That was probably one of our most negative, ranty podcasts we've ever had.
Sorry,
Mm.
just
I
before you
recommend.
get into it, could we just explain what happened with Sarah Blast and Low Tier God?
Yes, we can. Yeah, for sure. Want me to do the rundown? You want to do the rundown?
Sure.
Yeah, hold on, hold on. Let's charge our lasers a little bit. Let's take one last break,
Okay.
and then when we come back, we'll get all into it. All right, in just a moment. All right, see you in a second.